Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Season 7, Episode 18, Till Death Do Us Part. But before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct, and as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are great, we are awesome, we are good time, and you're gonna love us. You're gonna love it. If you go back and listen to it and you are a fan of Deep Space Nine, you put these two things together and you have just an all around great hour to an hour and a half. Or if we get off on wild tangents, almost 2 hours worth of content you can listen to in almost every episode. So um enjoy that.
Yeah.
Um Tonight we are to talk about the season 7 episode "Till Death Do Us Part," as David said. Of course, before we jump into that, we are going to try to give really quick recaps of what we've been up to this week because there's a lot we've discovered we want to cover in this episode and talking about this episode. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, David, how has your week been?
Week's been pretty standard. Yeah, business, the company closing means business has kind of boomed. It was slower this week than previous weeks, but still busier than it was before all of that, which is nice. Started and got about halfway through Leviathan Falls, the last book of the Expanse. There's some great action scenes that we've had so far, and they're definitely like exploring like what's going on, what happened in the past. But I have halfway through, and I'm like, how are they going to wrap all this up?
Yeah, there's definitely that feeling. I mean, I remember obviously I've been reading a bit longer than you, but you're already halfway. You've caught up quite significantly. But
Right.
I was just listening to it not too long ago because I've been bouncing back and forth between reading it and audiobook.
Yeah.
And I was just recently listening to chapter 34, and I stopped, grabbed the book, and I was like, chapter 34, how many chapters are in this book? And like I started looking and I was like, I see this, but I still feel like it's not enough to wrap up all the stuff that you've given me
Right.
as to, what's going on here. So
Right.
yeah, I know they will, obviously, because the book ends, but
Right.
it just seems like there's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot. So I
Yeah.
understand.
I wonder if they're going to leave things open a bit. I do know that
Good
the
point.
last of the short stories in the Memories Legion short story collection, called Sins of Our Fathers, is supposed to be a little short story after the end of this book. So
Okay.
there will, I guess, be some sort of something or other that they do to, wrap up something or other. Maybe there's a plot line or two that gets gets that short story to wrap up something. But anyway, looking forward to talking about it. I think we're planning on trying to do that next week, right? To do a after dark on the Expanse, book
Yes,
9.
yes, that
Cool,
is correct. So that shouldn't be a
awesome,
problem. So far, I'm moving right along, so that shouldn't be a problem at
fantastic.
all. As for my week, things have been pretty good, pretty steady. I did this thing recently where you know, obviously Amazon has everything and you can go on there and you can rent movies to stream and everything else. So I did that, but what I didn't know was that so the movie I rented was a Jackie Chan film called The Foreigner with Pierce Brosnan. Never seen it before. Highly recommend it. It's obviously it's an older Jackie Chan doing his thing, which
Mhm.
I don't know if any of you know this, but he's like 70. He is 71 years old. Not like he is. He's 71 years
Yeah,
old. Jackie Chan's been doing the thing for a long time. And so it just kind of got me curious because I just saw an ad for the movie, like really briefly. And it's like, I didn't know anything about it, So I looked it up, thought it was cool, wanted to watch it. Then it got me interested in like how many movies Jackie Chan has been in. The guy's been in a lot of movies.
I
I
bet.
mean,
Yeah,
a lot. And
yeah,
then his most famous movie is called Police Story. It's like the very first movie he was ever in.
really.
And yeah, and it actually they turned it into a series. There's like four of them. And if you watch them, it's so funny because like the obviously the first one, it being the first movie, it's understandably terrible. Like the story makes sense, but again, it's the first go of a lot of this stuff. So it's bad, but they get progressively better, and you watch them and the way they come out, like, as his technique improved, as his fame and notoriety improved, he kinda went back and kept continuing the story, and so
Mhm.
by the time you get to the 4th one, it's fantastic, and I love the series. I'm like, I'm locked in, and I mean, there haven't been any more. I think the last one he made, he was, like, 40, you know? Considering the very first one that he starred in, I think he was,
Yeah.
like, 19, 20 years old, so
Mhm.
it's amazing, and then he did all these movies in between all of
Yeah. Well, he got
um,
originally famous for doing the Drunken Master series. I've heard
yes,
about those.
yes, and then I watched a movie, last night with him in it that was a part of that Drunken Master series. Again, he's great. Like, if you've never watched any of those, you're doing yourself a disservice. There the moves, all that stuff, yes, that's great, but also Jackie's funny.
Yeah.
He does stuff that, like, I guess you're not expecting it coming out of that style of movie, and then he's really good. He's earnest, he's funny. Everything that he does seems very genuine, you know? So, like, I was enjoying the experience in watching the movies. And then back to The Foreigner, again, he's much older, so he's had to find ways to adjust and adapt, and as you know, Jackie Chan has famously done all of his own stunts and everything else. So here's this man in his 70s still doing some of these things. Now, granted, they've toned some of it down, but there are certain things he still just had to be very, very physical for. So it was a treat to watch him do it and still do it well. So that was great. And then of course you've got Pierce Brosnan in it, who just, I don't know, the two of them together in a movie doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but it works. So again, just a
Yeah.
surprising movie that I don't remember hearing a whole lot about, and I watched it and really enjoyed it. But the thing that I was really want to talk about is the fact that, again, I rented it on Amazon, and then after the movie ends, Amazon will automatically select another movie for you to watch. It's not one that you have to, rent or pay for, or anything like that. They'll just start playing movies. And the only reason why I bring it up is because I don't know where they get their, like, recommendation for movies for you from when it plays like that. But after a while, it was just like playing anything. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm not even going to turn this off. I'm not even mad about the movie selection. And I ended up watching The Magnificent Seven, which the
Mhm.
remake
Mhm.
with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt and all those guys.
Yeah.
Great movie. Vincent D'Onofrio has a bit part in it, and he's
Yeah.
hilarious. And
It
I was like, I feel like I've seen that movie before, but I
yeah.
couldn't remember. And I mean, a great, again, surprisingly great film to watch.
I forget. He opens his first scene is like some guys have stolen something of his, right? And like he comes out of like he kills a bear or something. I don't remember. Vincent
Yeah, he
D'Onofrio.
plays this mountain man called Jack Horn, and these guys, the scene that introduces him is these guys talking about how they just killed the great legendary Jack Horn, and they've stolen his rifle that's
That's
got
what it is.
JH carved in the butt of the rifle. And they're talking about how they killed him, and it's like, yeah, we snuck up on him and we beat him over the head with a rock. And so as they're telling the story, all of a sudden you hear this harumphing grumful, whatever, and this massive dude comes out of nowhere and just straight, like, he throws an axe, hits one guy square in the chest, kills him. The other guy gets spooked and tries to, like, back away, ends up falling over. He marches right up to him, grabs the rifle, and bashes his head in, and then proceeds to tell everybody he is Jack Horn, and
Right.
he had a right to do this to them because
Yes.
they stole from
Stole
him.
his stuff.
They
Yeah.
stole the stuff and tried to kill him. And then they're like trying to, the Magnificent Seven group, they're trying to bring him in to their mission, and they're telling him about it. He doesn't really seem to be paying them much attention, and he just kind of like wanders off. And you're like, did he hear a word that they said? You're not even sure. And Chris Pratt has a great line at the end of that scene. He was like, I believe that bear was wearing people clothes. Because I'm
That's what it
just
was.
like,
I knew there was something about
yeah,
bears.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was
it's a
like,
lot of
that's
stuff
a
in it.
accurate description of what just happened. That was
Yeah,
an animal. That wasn't a person.
and Chris Pine's character has a funny moment where he's like being held at gunpoint by two idiots, and he does a card trick, and with the card trick, then shoots the guys. Like he distracts them with the card trick long enough to shoot them. It's like what the heck? But yeah, yeah, that was a good one.
It was a great movie. And then the last one that I watched, and this was a couple hours ago, was the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise.
Mm.
And so
The
I was
attempted
always a
reboot.
fan. Yeah, I was always a fan of the Mummy franchise. This was the one that was supposed to be rebooting the franchise after Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz and all those guys were supposedly done.
Mhm.
And it basically brings the Mummy into the modern age. And Tom Cruise is playing a former soldier who's more like a treasure hunter. He goes into these areas and steals things and sells them on the black market. And that's how
Right.
he comes across this female
Mummy.
mummy witch woman who is buried in the Arabian desert and goes through the whole thing there. Again, didn't think I was going to enjoy the movie because, again, I was a fan of the original Mummy series, and something about them trying to reboot a franchise like that with Tom Cruise um, seemed weird to me.
That's probably
Um,
why it didn't do well at the box
Ye
office.
but, I mean, but if you watch it, it's really not that bad of a movie, and their take on, like, how the cursing and everything else works, the mummy's curse and what's up with this, particular, mummy and everything else, I thought that was very interesting, an interesting way to tell the story and to, like, bridge certain mythologies together. So you've got like the Egyptian mythology, and then you've got the stuff with the Crusades and everything else, and English lore and all that gets roped into there too. And then even some, superstitious stuff with a Jekyll Hyde
Russell Crowe.
character. Yeah. So, but the point of that movie that I want to bring up is the Russell Crowe character. He plays this. He's a elderly kind of doctor professor type, right? And there's a line in the movie where he ends up fighting Tom Cruise's character. I think his name is Nick. And so these two are fighting, and Russell says, "You may be the younger man, but I've got whatever it is he's got with experience, and then his super strength because he's like a monster in hiding or whatever."
Right.
So I had to pause it right there
Yeah,
and
because
looked it
Russell
up.
Crowe,
And I looked it up, and Russell Crowe is 61 years old.
Tom
Tom
Cruise is.
Cruise is 63 years old. And I said, that must have ate him up that he had to say that to him. Like, I could just see him reading that and like laughing first and then
Yeah,
realizing, no, you've got to say it. And
Tom
then
Cruise
like
is still projected to be 30 years old over here. Yeah.
right, like he's and the crazy part is like if you didn't know their ages, you could totally believe that Russell Crowe was older than him. He looks older than him. I
Yeah.
mean, Tom Cruise admittedly takes very good care of himself. He works out a lot. Even in the movie, there's a scene where he's got his shirt off for whatever reason. I think like there's a plane crash or something like that, and he's got his shirt off, looking for wounds or whatever. And he's muscled out. The guy's in great physical condition next to Russell Crowe, who has clearly, enjoyed his senior years. And he's got the bushy white beard, and he's got the belly and things like that. And I'm like, what happened to you, Maximus? You
Yeah.
need to get back in the gladiator shape,
Yeah.
man, because Tom Cruise is putting you to shame
Yeah.
in this
He,
movie.
I forget the name of the movie at the moment. I think it's at like a Netflix special, but Russell Crowe plays a drone operator, and one of the younger Hemsworth brothers, the youngest one, is like the main character. He's on a special mission with a team they're trying to capture some terrorists, but Russell Crowe is the guy in the chair basically running this drone. So he's a kind of portly 60-year-old fellow who's on his like third marriage, and so like he's like part of the movie is Russell Crowe is this guy who goes into work and like bombs people and then goes home at night and gets groceries. Like his life is just so almost normal compared to what we would experience. Meanwhile, like the Hemsworth brother is in like life and death situations as a soldier on the ground. And so like Russell Crowe is like, all right, go here, go there, and then like, all right, I'm checking out for the night, and then comes back in the morning, and that kind of dynamic. I forget what that movie was called. Um, but yeah, that was a good one with him because again, Russell Crowe is not Maximus in that movie.
No,
He's the guy who
he's
sits in the chair all day.
yeah, I'd seen him do a couple of interviews, and again, it wasn't lost on me that he's gained a significant amount of weight. And he kind of talked about it a little bit and just being something that he didn't really pay attention to or care that much about, and apparently there's a lot of actors who do that, unless they're like it's for a role, whatever. They don't do it. Jason Momoa is famous for saying unless they're paying him, he's not lifting a weight, he's not doing a diet, he's not doing any of it. He's like, unless they pay
Right.
for it, I'm not, whatever.
Well,
So I mean, I don't have a problem with that if that's how you want to live your life for sure. But I'm just saying for the purpose of this movie, when that line happened, I know that Russell Crowe like internally was screaming that he's got to pretend that he is so much older than this dude who's actually older than him. But you'd be forgiven for thinking that Tom Cruise was late 40s, early 50s. Again, he takes good care of himself, and I'm
yeah.
sure that there's beyond just the diet and the workout regimen
Well,
and everything else. I'm
and
sure
Russell
there's some
Crowe is a
some
handsome
touch ups
man.
that
He was
happens.
Russell Crowe was a handsome man in his time, but I mean, Tom Cruise was always the pretty boy, so he always
That's
had the
yeah,
edge.
that's true. He always styled himself that way in the first place.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it helps when that's the image that you projected for a very long time.
Speaking of Cruise, I assume you haven't followed up on any of the other Mission Impossibles. You haven't watched any of the other ones
No,
yet.
I keep saying I'm going to, and then of course something happens and I don't. So I'll get to it.
It's all good.
I'll
It's
get
all
to
good.
it. But we're not here to talk about all that. We are here to talk about Till Death Do Us Part.
Yeah.
Um, would you like to give the recap for that, or would you like me to do it?
I'll give it a go this time. I think you did last week, right? So
Yes.
let's do it. All right. So till death do us part. So again, guys, this is the part of the show now where I guess we're going to be getting into kind of more of a syndicated run here because we're gonna not
Yes.
have the typical, one episode plot is contained, but the episodes build on each other up until the finale. So
As we
last,
said, that kicked off last week. Last week's episode started that heavy serialization for us. So every single episode after that they all build on each other. So every time we tune in this for the next run, you'll always hear last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and there you go. So yeah,
right, yeah. So there are basically three major plots going on. Two of them, of course, are a little more contained, close together. But we'll start with Dax and. Well, no, we'll do that last. The main one we might remember is Cisco had proposed to Cassidy Yates, and they were gonna. He wants to get married to her. He proposes, and she accepts. But the prophets near the end of the episode warned him last time that if he that she cannot go on his path, that his path is for him to walk alone, and that if he basically insinuates that if he marries Cassidy, then all he will know is sorrow. Now
how
the
very
only
emo of the prophets.
yeah, and it's only one prophet. It's the one who basically apparently like inhabited the woman who was actually his biological mother. Turns out the woman he thought was his mother was actually his father's second wife, and the mother was anyway. The woman
The
he's
prophet
seeing,
that is his mother, the part of her that is
yes,
his mother, is the prophet that keeps talking to him. There.
exactly, which is interesting. But anyway, um, now of course Cisco is put out off by that. He doesn't want to break off anything with Cassidy. He has Jake in there, and Jake is like, well, what were the prophets doing, and what is all this? And Cisco tells Jake, hey, you're not helping me out here. Um, Long story short, we're gonna get right to it. Cisco basically says, you know what? Screw what the prophets have to say. I want to live my life. My life is my own. I might. Uh, the prophets can't tell me what to do. I mean, he tells that to Kira, and Kira's like, "Well, you should follow the prophets." So, like, when he breaks it
Kira's
off
like,
with,
yeah, shut up.
yeah, I mean, so he tells Cassidy what the prophets told him, and she, of course, is upset. Takes her ring off, But as Cassidy is about to leave on her ship on a mission, he runs in there. Cisco runs in there, says, "You know what? I don't care what the prophets have to say. I choose to marry you. That's my choice. Let's go get married." And so instead of having a big Bajoran wedding like they had maybe felt like they were going to be forced to have last episode, they instead have a little private ceremony where Admiral Ross acts as the officiate and marries them. And so they're exchanging rings when another vision happens to Cisco, where the same prophet, the one appearing as his mother Sarah, says, "Don't do this, please. Like, I'm warning you." And he says, "This is my choice to make," and he follows through with it. So Cisco is now married to Cassidy. Before the wedding takes place, at the beginning of the episode, after Cisco had originally had his first vision, Kai Wynn comes to the station. Of course, she does. She wants to be the one who officiates this wedding, not the Bajoran priest that was on the station that Cisco's already asked. She basically says, "I'm gonna let me do it. Basically, I'm gonna ask him to step aside. I'm sure he won't mind, this other priest." Cisco is wise not to tell her that he is thinking of calling off the wedding. He just lets her kind of continue on with, "Oh, you're the emissary, and I'm here to kind of help you out." But as she's leaving Cisco's office, again, she's never had a vision from the prophets before, but Cisco's had several. Uh, she has a vision from who she thinks are the prophets. It turns out that they say she has a certain type of pa, which we might remember as kind of the spiritual energy that the Bajorans believe they have. And these prophets, as she thinks of them, say that she is going to be led by a man of the land, which quickly is revealed to us to be none other than Gul Dukat, who has had himself transferred to Deep Space Nine. He appears before Kai Wynn and starts talking about, his history as someone who was oppressed by the Cardassians. And it turns out he was about to be executed at one point, but the truck he was on was diverted because the driver had been bribed. And Kai Wynn is so shocked because it turns out that she was the one who, during the occupation, had actually bribed that truck driver. So very quickly, very very quickly, does Gul Dukat, again, who looks like a Bajoran now because he had surgery done, get into the good graces of Kai Wynn. And at the end of the episode, she is so taken with him that they actually kiss. I mean, you just can't even imagine. But yep, she is going to be led by him, according to the vision she had, which obviously we now know that was not the prophets, but the Pa Wraiths that she actually had a vision from. And Gul Dukat is their actual emissary of sorts. Our final main storyline is the one that goes on with Ezri and Worf. As you might remember, they had been captured by the Breen after having crash landed on a planet, during which time they had given in to their sexual energies and had a rendezvous of sorts. So while they're on the Breen ship, they're in captivity the whole time. They take Worf one night to go interrogate him. They basically force him to sort of drug to relive his past, to interrogate him in some fashion. So when he comes back, he's talking about Alexander and Jadzia. Meanwhile, when Ezri goes and she comes back, she proclaims her love for, of all people, Julian, our lovely Dr. Bashir. But meanwhile, they had conversations about the fact that she was both, like, at one point, Worf says she's very much like Jadzia, but then later on, she's not like Jadzia. They argue. But all of that we'll talk about. What really comes down to the most important thing is at the very end of the episode, the Breen take the two of them, Ezri and Worf, and give them to none other than Weyoun. Weyoun has apparently worked out some sort of alliance with the Breen, and so the two, Ezri and Worf, are presented as gifts to the Dominion to Wayoon, who has with him the female changeling and Gold Damar as his companions. But the Breen have officially joined up with the Dominion as the episode ends. So that's the major highlights, I'd say. Anything you
Yes, it
would like to
is.
add there, Perry?
No, pretty salient coverage there. And besides, we're going to break down all of these things. And if you just want more detail, as we say all the time, go watch the episode. It's available on Paramount Plus right now. You can go watch it. Um, oh, by the way, real quick before we do dive into it, see
Oh,
my
Federation of Planets. Very
yes,
nice. Very nice.
my little gift to myself during Prime days. I saw it and had to get it. But yeah. Anyway, back to the episode. Yes. So first and foremost, since you have never seen this episode before, what did you think?
Yeah, again, it's interesting because we're now on this syndicated plot.
Hmm.
So it's not like past episodes where it's all self-contained for the most part, and so you have a full running plot in one episode. So at this point, it's really hard to rate episodes versus the others. I do like it for multiple reasons. Kai Wynn has always been a villain.
Yeah.
She has always been a villain to our main cast. She might present herself as trying to accommodate, for example, Cisco, or trying to, become a better person. But we know deep down her heart is flawed. She's a corrupt individual. Her paw is evil. Her paw is broken. And so it makes sense that she would be a pawn, be corruptible by the paw race. Uh,
Now, it's important to note here, though, that she does not know that it's the paw race.
True.
We know that it's the paw race, but she does not. And as a person who's never had an orb experience or has never been directly spoken to by the prophets, she's only heard about it. She's basically taking everything she's ever heard of and putting that together into, oh my God, the prophets have reached out to me. And it's also important to note that the paw race are very much like the prophets, they're just evil.
Right.
So when you have groups that are that similar doing things and they use similar methods, then of course it's easy for a person who is like Hywin to miss all the warning signs and think of this as finally I'm getting the
The
respect that I'm owed.
right.
She feels like this is something that was long owed to her, not something that you
Yes.
could ever be worthy of or could earn or like that. She should have had this a long time ago. And we even hear that when she has a conversation with Angel, who's also Gul Dukat here, which is funny. We should just call him Dukat. Gul is a rank. Dukat is his name. But anyway,
Sure. Fair enough.
we
Fair
hear
enough.
her talking about that with him, and he says, surely they would never to the prophets would never talk to me. They would reserve that for someone like you. And rather than taking that moment to be honest and admit that this had never happened, she
Right.
just says, well, yes, of course.
Right.
She assumes it. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, it's so ironic because at that time she finally had a vision, but of course it was, as we know, the paw race. But anyway, she should have known better. And by the way, this episode I think gave me I think I can explain what the difference between the prophets and the paw wraiths are. So maybe I'll say that real quick. The prophets are obviously outside of time, but they don't try and affect time. They don't have like an ego by which they try and manipulate time for their own purposes. They're more like observers most of the time who will maybe warn like Cisco and the Bajorans about things that will happen, but not in a proactive way. They don't say, do this or do that, otherwise this or that. However, the Pa race seem to have a desire to actually manipulate events. So they
Yes.
can foresee events, but they want to actively control the events. And
Yes. And that was why they were kicked out of the Celestial Temple in the first place.
right,
They wanted to be way more active and way more hands-on in time and in events. And the prophets were like, no, like that's beneath us. We
right,
can observe, we can watch, we can whatever. And they did, they had their own ways of kind of like communicating warnings, stuff like that, like through the various people that they inspired via prophecy, and also with the orbs, the which help to kind of give people a certain perspective on events, but it never was something that directly said, you must do this, you must not do that, so forth. Whereas the Pirates were like, no, no, no. We want to be able to tell them, hey, we
Yeah.
want you to do it this way. You must comply with this. You must.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Vincent asked an interesting question. What about when they engineered Ben's birth? That's arguably a contradiction. I would say that they were bringing about things that they had foreseen, as opposed to actively making them happen, which seem contradictory in terms because like they literally make it happen. But they're not like the Paw race in the sense that they want power and they're trying to control the Bajorans or Cisco even. Like they might have brought about Cisco's birth, but they've never controlled him. They've never commanded him. They talk to him and with him and even warn him, but it's never a master servant dynamic. Even though the Bajorans sometimes treat it as such, they're the prophets, so we do what they tell us. Our experience, at least my understanding of the prophets, is that they're actually more passive than the Bajorans sometimes give them credit for.
Yeah. And in fact, my take on the prophets and bringing about the birth of Ben Cisco was more on the side of, here are these observers who want to basically insert themselves into a timeline to observe events. Like, think of it as like a researcher, like someone who go like a David Attenborough, right? Who
Hmm.
goes and is observing penguins somewhere, right?
Right,
He's not a penguin, but he can be put into their environment and watch from a closer perspective than we ever could from where we are, because we don't have the ability to access it, right?
right,
But to me, that explains why Ben went through the majority of his life without ever having any influence with the prophets and not knowing anything about them until he came to the station.
well, I like that I that the penguins idea because if you probably are aware, Perry, but people who are scientists who go out to the field to record, photograph, they're supposed to not interact with the animals at all, even
Mhm.
to the point of like if an animal is dying in front of them, they're supposed to let it die. Well, let's say they didn't. There's a little baby penguin.
Actually,
It's gonna die.
that just happened recently. There was a whole story about it. These group of scientists, they were observing a group of penguins. There was a massive snowstorm while they were observing the penguins, and a group of about, I think, 20 or 30 of them got separated from the rest of the main group. So
Right.
if you know anything about penguins and their habits and anything like that, they have to stay together to fend off the cold
Cold.
and everything of their environment. Well, because of the way that the snowstorm happened, it perfectly trapped this group of 20, and there was like nothing they could do to get out. And it was so cold, and they were so low down in this like valley where they couldn't get out, that even them huddled together, they were not going to last. The only way for them to get out was through human intervention. And so they said that the crew debated for days on
Yeah.
whether or not they should help this group. Meanwhile,
Right.
they're like watching them die.
Right.
And so they're just like, it's nature, but at the same time, we're here. So it was finally decided under the cover of night, a group of them went out and dug a trench so that the penguins the next day, when they were, because they would like every day, the penguins would get out and like walk the perimeter and come back.
Right.
And so by the time that they, by the time the sun came up the next day, when they went to walk the perimeter, they found the trench, and sure enough, they all came out and
Back to
got
the
out.
main group.
But it was a controversial thing because it was like, you're
Right.
not supposed to do it, but that's exactly that
Right.
scenario, and they
I
debated and debated and debated on whether or not to do it.
Yeah, so I
So
see the prophets as like building a trench. They're saving the penguins, but they're not trying to be the king of the penguins. They're not trying
right,
to rule.
right. The prophets would build the trench and be like, it's up to them now to find it.
Right.
We've made it. It's up to them to find it. The Power Racer, on the other hand, would be like, no, we're going to airlift all of them out. We're going to install them in this area where we
In a
know that they'll be
zoo. Yeah.
safe. But at the same time, they now have to please us for the
Right.
rest of eternity
Yeah, it's
because
like they
we
took all
saved
the
you.
we saved the penguins by depositing every single one of them in a zoo. Yeah, like,
Mm,
that's not saving them on some capacity. Yeah,
right.
that's a fun little analogy to have made. Um, But anyway, I like thinking about I liked figuring that out about how the prophets and the pod race are different, because it kind of explains what's going on, how they could predict some things. Like they obviously predicted Kai Wynn and Ducat meeting,
Mhm.
and how they would like convince her to join them. So they obviously
Well,
have some
I
idea of the future.
well, I think they
Yeah,
have. Yeah, I think they still retain their ability to observe things outside of time. I
yeah,
think that's um, a trait that's inherent to the I guess we want to call them people, the those people, the prophets, the power race, that
yeah.
race.
The
They have
the
that ability.
the
Um, and
yeah,
then they then manipulate Ducat and be like, "Here's what you need. We need Kai Wynn. Here's what you need to say to make sure that she is on your side. And we are
convinced.
going to also plant the seed so that when you say these words, she's going to fall in line."
Right,
The prophets would never do that.
right.
Like the prophets, that's Ben's whole problem. They won't tell him
Why?
why he and Cassidy can't be together. And if you think about what Sarah says in this, she's not saying you cannot marry Cassidy.
Right.
She's saying if you do, you're running this risk of a life of woe and sorrow, and I don't want that for you.
Yes.
As your mom, I don't want you to suffer. And he's like,
Right.
it's my choice to make. I can
Right.
do this, and
Yeah.
that's the whole crux of the arguments that we're seeing between these two groups, Cisco, Cassidy, Adame, and Angel, over here,
Right.
is one's being told, whereas the other one's being warned,
Right.
and what to do with the information
Right.
is up to the individuals.
Yeah, and that is exactly how the conversation goes with Jake. He says, not that he can't, but that he shouldn't
Mhm.
marry Cassidy. Um, but as I was thinking about this, I was trying to think like, how do I feel about him marrying Cassidy? Because like we're being warned, so you would think that Jake or Cisco is being bullheaded, or he's making a mistake because he's being warned against it. He's even being sacrilegious because he seems to now be a believer. I mean, that's what Kira basically insinuates. But then I
Mhm.
thought back to the very first episode and what made Cisco interesting to the prophets. The fact that he like spoke with them, that he challenged them, that like he didn't just go along. I mean, he was trying to
Right.
understand what was going
He was
on.
trying to understand them, but he also wanted them to understand him.
Right,
They were teaching each other.
a Bajoran would just have yes, yes, sir. You're the prophets. I do what you say. Cisco, because he came from outside this faith, has always been in a position where he's more willing to ask questions, to challenge, to do something more than like an average Bajoran, and so that I it makes me really interested to see how they're going to follow up on this plot line. Is this going to be a when they say he's going to suffer, he's going to know sorrow? Um, that is not that's not a bad thing in the sense that
And
like
it
if he
and
chooses love, like the whole
And we
point
don't
of
know and we don't know when that would happen. Is it going to be immediate upon saying "I do"? Is the world gonna blow up? Is he gonna lose his arm? What is it? Is it gonna be 20 years from now? Is he gonna have 10 years, 20 years of life with Cassidy of sweetness and light and everything's wonderful, and then
right,
suddenly there's a downturn? I mean, some people might say, "I'm gonna take the 20 years,
right,
and then we'll just wrestle through we
right,
don't know what that is, but what he does know in this moment right now is he loves this woman. He wants to spend the rest of his life with her. She loves him. She wants to spend the rest of her life with him. That's what he's using to base his decision on,
right,
and can't fault him for that. I think you're right. Like I like the fact that Cisco, while fully acknowledging that these prophets have abilities well beyond his comprehension, he does not let that cow him into always doing what they want, how they want.
right,
Now, he's talking with Kira later, and she says that, the prophets have always, led you,
right, the
whatever.
right way. Yeah,
And he said,
and
well, yeah, and there's always a first time. But at the same time, it's like if we think about it, they've told him things and they've kind of always left it to him to make the decision.
true.
It's kind of been like a, hey, we're not saying we don't like this or whatever. It's just like, if you do this, here's the very real possibility of the outcome that's going to happen.
Right,
So you need to be either okay with that, or you need to do what we're offering, which will be a less, whatever.
Yeah.
situation.
You may not have made a different decision unless we prompted you to make that decision, but you don't have to make that different decision. We're just telling you that it's an option.
Right.
But I really like the fact that, for example, it's only one of the prophets. It's the Sarah
In
one.
this instance, it's only Sarah that comes to him, and again, she's warning him from as close to a mothering, naturing, or nurturing
Hmm.
standpoint than we've ever seen. In
Right.
most cases with the prophets, they are very,
Hands
um,
off. Way
yeah, but she's made
impersonal.
that up,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's made the approach multiple times now to touch him, to hold him,
Yeah.
to caress his face, to hold him to her.
Yeah.
Very much in this, she wants to protect him.
Right.
So again, you can take what she says with
A grain of
a big
salt,
grain of
sort of.
salt here,
Yeah.
because she's not just a prophet, she's a mom, and she's trying to
Right.
protect her child from what she perceives as potential sorrow and
Right.
issues.
Well, and here's the reason I bring that up, because the real question becomes, what if, like, if she were to present, and let's say there are like two paths: marry Cassidy, don't marry Cassidy, but the don't marry Cassidy path has regret. So Cisco doesn't have sorrow in the sense that like he loses Cassidy. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe he's going to have sorrow because he watches her die in his arms, just like his last wife. But on the other path is regret. Is the stepping down from the challenge, retreating from the hard thing. Like the hero in Cisco is the man that says, I'm willing to marry someone and take on whatever hardships that involves, which is literally what the marriage vow is supposed to be. It's like in
Yes.
sickness and health,
Sickness
and
and health, better or worse.
yeah, it's all the things, right? So like Cisco's willing to take sorrow if that is part of the deal, which is why again he's a hero and why we love him and why we follow him. It was just really interesting to. I'm really glad that the show was willing to go here. They were willing to put Cisco in a rock and a hard place. You gotta.
Yeah.
That's what you gotta do with your heroes, with their storytelling. Give them a hard choice. Give them a this or that. Either one. You can't know as a reader, as a watcher, which one's the right path to take until the story moves forward. And
Mhm.
I love that Cisco does this. I was initially, again, as someone who wasn't like a huge Cassidy fan, I was like, okay, he doesn't get married last episode. He's gonna have to move on, and he's gonna be sad about it, but we move on. And then no, he marries her, and I was like, you know what? That was the right choice. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge Cassidy fan, but he stuck to his guns. He's the Cisco.
I and
Yeah.
I don't know if this is because I watched the show so long ago as a kid and multiple times since then, everything else. But I've always liked the Cisco and Cassidy storyline. There's just something about it that I've always really enjoyed. I like that, it wasn't I think I like that for even the little bit of it that we do see a progression of, you know, them getting to know each other, them being comfortable with each other, um, moving into this point of deep love and affection, which leads to marriage. Now, as we've said on this show multiple times, we wish there was more of that. We wish we had seen more of these things that are kind of being left for us to just assume because she would just appear somewhere in an episode, But yeah, I've just always enjoyed that, and I still wish that we got even more.
Hmm.
Um, it's odd to me that we would have finally a captain showing a successful, healthy relationship, and we get so little of it.
Yeah.
Picard was notoriously single, pining for his best friend's wife, his dead best friend's wife, for years. Kirk
And
couldn't
she's
make it work.
right there the
Right.
whole time.
Kirk couldn't make it work from week to week to week with any woman that he shacked up with, no matter her height, color, whatever it was. The man just couldn't
Literally
get it.
her color.
Right. He just couldn't do it. You know. Janeway also notoriously single. I mean, her and Chakotay danced around the issue for however long, but I mean, again, nothing on those ends. So I'm just like, what's the deal here? We finally get a captain who seems to be like in it and can do this thing. And like we see him. He was already married, then he was widowed. We saw brief flirtations with other people. He finally gets with Cassidy. I mean, come on, like show us the path to a successful relationship. You're I'm sorry to break the fourth wall or whatever here, but hey, CBS, your major fan base is a bunch of nerds. They could use tips on how to talk to women. You have this smooth talking captain right here. Use him. Use him. What are you doing? So this is
Uh,
how you treat women, guys. This is how you
yeah,
get a wife. Here
yeah,
you go.
right,
Step
right.
by step, follow this. Done. And Cisco had two wives. Think of that. He had two. Not because of a divorce, not because of any weirdo transporter malfunctions, but legit because he won them over.
Right.
Two wives.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
So,
Man
whatever.
of integrity and yeah, all that
Talent. He's got
talent.
talent.
He's got charm. He's got charisma.
He can
Yeah,
sing, he can cook,
yeah,
he can fight.
yeah,
He's a capable leader, capable father. Come on. What can't he do?
yeah.
Did we just
Seriously.
did we just make an argument for the best captain of all time? Yep.
Oh. Yeah, it's funny. It's like Picard could only be a captain, but that's literally it.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Jake
yeah,
or
that's all that we really see of Picard. I mean, like he had other, high-minded interest, fencing and
the archaeology. Yeah,
archaeology or whatever, but nothing that made him a truly relatable man. Like
right.
he wasn't a father, he wasn't a husband, he wasn't even a, baseball coach or whatever. Like he didn't coach other people in fencing or anything like that. Everything he did was very singular, solitary. Cisco, everything he did was, you know, interpersonal, communal. It inherently built with other people. Yeah, missed that with
Mm,
Picard entirely. So yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Well,
Cisco even Picard even ruined Cisco's first marriage. Yeah, that's one way to think about it. That's one way to think about it for
I
sure.
swear
It's awful.
we really do have to go and do a recap of episode 1 when we're done here
Oh, we're
because
gonna,
that's a
we're
great
gonna,
scene.
we're gonna have to go back and discuss a lot of things now that
Yeah.
once we get to that. Now that we know what we know.
Off.
Um, So
Yeah.
now turning our attention a little bit here, since we've talked so much about Cisco and Cassidy, we have to talk about the newly established couple, which would of course be Kai Wynn and
Ducat.
Angel, or Ducat. We'll call him Ducat because saying Angel every time is going to throw me off.
Right.
Kai Wynn and Ducat. You know what?
Woohoo.
It works.
Oh, it
Like
does.
it
Oh, it
absolutely
does.
works.
Oh, it
Like
does.
these two, it's like why didn't this happen sooner? They're both. It's
It
not just the
feels
evil;
like
it's the
destiny. I was
yes.
as I was watching this episode, I was like, good storytelling asks questions like, what's the worst thing that could happen? What is the worst thing that could happen? Gul Dukat and Kai Wynn teaming up. And because they're also perfect characters because they both had anti-hero arcs. They both had some sort of attempt to become better versions of themselves and
It's
then
true.
epically fail.
That's true. They both
They
had
epically
opportunities to pivot and be better, and they said, "No, not gonna do it.
nah,
Just not gonna
not
do it."
gonna happen. And so that kiss when she kisses him, like he puts his hand on her and she's like, "No, don't." Good when he takes his hand away, and they kiss. It was like, yeah, that just crystallizes this corrupt
Every
alliance that we're gonna have
and
to
just
deal
every
with now.
bit of the successful manipulation of Kai Wynn at the hands of Ducat, it's just
Yeah,
it's done to sickening perfection. The way he comes in and
yeah.
he's this older simpering dude seeking the blessings of the Kai because he's just a lowly man of the land. Make sure I say it with extra emphasis, you know, all of
Uh,
that. And then, when they're having their dinner conversation and they're drinking the spring wine and everything, which I could have swore spring wine was like a light blush pink color, not that white. This is clearly water color, but whatever. Um, and then they start talking.
I was gonna give it
Yeah.
to the emissary for
Yeah,
the
oh, but he
wedding.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to appreciate this as much as two Bajorans and the racism, the way
Yeah.
it came up so
Oh yeah.
easily for the both of them, which is kind of funny because
Oh
obviously that's Ducat sitting there, but the way in which, like, it was, you could just see the relief in Kai Wynn that she got to say it and enjoy it and was understood by this individual.
Everything he said was what
Exactly
she
what
was
she's been
thinking, and
thinking,
she loved
right?
that she
That
could.
she's been
Yeah,
thinking it. Here's another person, here's another Bajoran who gets it. We've got this outsider leading us. Sure, the prophets talk to him, but he's not us. He can't get this. Oh, thank God someone said it. I didn't have to say it.
right.
All of that. And I just, it's like, this is why you suck. This
Yeah,
is why the prophets don't speak to you, because
exactly.
these are your true thoughts. They know your heart. They know that that's in there, and
Right.
this is why they don't speak to you.
And
And
that's
mm,
why this is what really crystallized the whole the prophets versus the power race thing for me, because Kai Wynn wouldn't take anything from the prophets as a this is what's going to happen and you're going to have to accept it kind of thing. If the prophets ever told her this is what's going to happen, she would use that information to try and manipulate things, to change things, to make it not happen, for example, if she didn't like it. And that's exactly what the Paul race offer. The Paul race offer knowledge about the future in order to try and affect the future. And it just crystallizes why she is not going to be getting visions from the prophets, because they can't trust her with information. She's not trustworthy. She's not truly interested in selflessness like the prophets are. Like the again, going back to the prophets doing what they do, the prophets never do anything for their own glory, even though they are worshipped as gods. There's nothing that we've ever seen from the prophets to indicate that they have either demanded that worship, get something from that worship, need that worship, or even acknowledge it on some level. They don't really acknowledge the worship in any sort of clear way. But obviously, the Pa race would do everything the opposite. They would accept the worship to rule, to somehow be rulers of some kind.
yeah,
I think. Um,
the power rates almost make it sound like they need the worship and the adulation of the Bajoran people. Like they get something from it.
right,
But not the power race, but the prophets don't. The prophets don't make it seem like it's in any way a consequence, whether or not the Bajoran people fully believe and worship them or whatever else. They're aware that they do.
right,
And they've stated that before, but it's not something that they have instructed them to do.
right.
So, yeah, that's interesting that they would, you know, that those two would work that way, but it makes sense that it would draw a person like Kaiwin and a person like Ducat to them, because they are also two people who, from the get-go, have been all about serving their own egos, and they believe very much in their own power and influence. And we've seen from, again, day one, Kaiwin, even back when she was just Vedic Win, was always about building her power base, building up her notoriety, getting herself maneuvered into positions of influence and power. Ducat did the exact same thing. He wanted to, rule the military first, and he wanted to be on the governmental body, and he was the protector of the government. He did like all these things that he did to keep himself always within that certain realm of power and influence. And when
Right.
he lost it all, and it was respectively for both of them, when they lost it all with the establishment of Cisco as emissary, right when Kai Wynn becomes Kai, with the downfall of the Cardassian military and the takeover of the Dominion, and then the loss of Zial and everything else, they had nothing left to turn to,
Mhm.
and that internal hatred being that thing, with people, where when you can't accept accountability for your actions, it must be someone else's fault. Who can I blame? Who can I hate?
Blame
The
shifting.
power race fed on that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We see you. We see what you're about. You
Right.
will be more influential and more powerful than you ever thought possible when you give in to us, when you let
Right.
us guide you.
Right. Right.
And granted, they did not reveal themselves fully to Kai Wynn
True.
as Race.
True.
They still set her up because they said the things that they know that she's been thinking.
Right.
Cisco has faltered. This is your time.
Right.
Restore us. Which, for a person who harbors such racial racist thoughts the way that she does, being restored to a time of prosperity for Bajor for Bajorans, and she's the vessel by which that's done,
Right.
totally makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Gold Dukat or Dukat also feeds into her fear that Cisco is going to somehow bring about the end times because of the blight upon his fields, and she repeats one of the scriptures about how in the end days the
Mhm.
fields will be fallow or whatever.
Now
Um,
let's be clear on that too. Sis Gul Dukat doesn't have any fields.
she
If
never
this is
follows up. She never
She never
checks into his
checks.
story.
Right. Everything he says, as far as I'm concerned, everything that he tells her is a lie he's been instructed to tell from the Pares. There is nothing about anything that he has given us that is in any way genuine. He doesn't have a brother. He doesn't have fields in whatever province. I think he said Rakentha province is where he's from. He doesn't have any of that. He doesn't none of those things. He
Right.
just said what was necessary to say because he is 100% being guided by the Pares. As
Right.
much as Cisco is the emissary to the prophets, he is the emissary to
Of the
the
power race.
Pares.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they are 100% manipulating her, and she is so easily swayed by it all,
Yeah. Led.
seduced by it,
Yeah.
taken in by it. So yeah, she's not checking to see if he's actually got a barren farm with a brother somewhere. No, it just fits what she's already been told by the prophets.
Right.
So I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that moment where she's praying before Ducat comes in. She's like, "Give me strength to obey your will." And it's like, lady, if you were in tune with the prophets at all, you would have realized there was something wrong. Like there's something just off by that whole experience. But you were so, petty about I've never had a vision. So boom, the Paul Race give you one, and you slurped it down. Um,
So
so
this
yeah,
their whole interaction, it's one of those that, it makes me think about things that we have in regards to religion here on our humble planet. And we've talked about
sure,
some of these things here and there. But Kai Wynn to me is the perfect example of somebody who um, has read every scripture you've ever heard of and shows up to church every Sunday and is at every church meeting, is on every church committee, is to all of those things, right? But is only there and only does it out of a sense of this is what's going to keep me noticed, keep me in a certain
mhm,
light, give me a certain influence. I don't necessarily believe it, but I know it enough and I'm aware of it enough that I can use this to my own ends. And I think that's a
yeah,
perfect
yeah,
description for her. And I think that's the whole point of her character is that
yeah,
she's
oh yeah,
not a true believer. She's just been so cloaked in the stuff for so long that unless you get
right,
the outsider's perspective that we have as audience members, you wouldn't know that. You
right,
wouldn't
right,
not everybody would know that anyway. Like we know that Kira knows it
yeah,
because Kira's had her own personal experiences, but to Bajorans at large, they don't know that. That's why she was elected Kai, you know.
right,
And so
yeah,
it I always find episodes like this interesting because it's a sci-fi show and they're clearly making a commentary about religion and um the corruption that exists. And again, it's not everyone. We've seen, even in this show, good Vedics and people who do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and vice versa, and all that stuff. But I love that they do that here with such a very pivotal character, and it always makes me wonder, like, what are some real world parallels that we have, and is any of that going on now, where people are using religion, twisting religion in such a way to bring about potentially terrible things, and we don't question them because they say, well, my God tells me this, or my Bible tells me this, or my Quran, or my whatever, so forth and so on.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely the right concern to have. Um, the Pharisees in the Gospels really fit that description of Kai Wynn you just gave, of people who know the Pharisees knew all the quote unquote rules, the laws, the do this, the don't do that, and they were supposedly the ones who were like effectively doing all that. Jesus says, "You guys managed to tithe even your spices. Like you tithe 10% of your spices, your paprika, and all of that. Like you guys are so to the letter, even that gets properly tithed, and yet you miss the whole point of the law. Which, if you read what he's saying, it's not about tithing. It's about giving to the poor. It's about caring for other people. It's about your heart position. It's not just about throwing out 10% of your spices. It's about like giving that to your neighbor, caring for other people. And the way you can know if you're in a pharisaical attitude is the story that Jesus tells about a Pharisee and a tax collector going to pray. The Pharisee gets up there, he starts praying, but he starts praying out loud and says, "Hey God, thank God I'm not that tax collector back there. I tithe all my things. I'm so good. I'm wonderful, blah 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 blah." Meanwhile, this tax collector, which back then being a tax collector was no. People didn't like tax collectors at all because they were the Roman tax collectors. Um, he goes up there, he prays, but he prays quietly, and he says, "God, I've sinned. Please forgive me." And Jesus says that of the two of them, the tax collector prayed correctly because he wasn't praying and boasting. So basically, what I'm getting at, like, if you as an individual, as a Christian, are saying, "Well, thank God I'm not that," or "I'm so good in and of myself. Thank God gave me this, God gave me that," but it's in a boastful way, you're doing it wrong. You're
Yeah,
not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be about you. I've never had a orb experience. Well, you know what? That's okay. Like you don't have to have had an orb experience. It's when you start acting egotistically and in and of your in your own um, you're about yourself, even using good things but to promote yourself when it becomes a problem. So yeah, Kai Wynn
mhm,
would she be, she's right there in the Bible called a Pharisee. She'd be right along with the rest of them. So yeah. Jesus had something to say about her type.
and the way, like, again, I keep going back to that conversation they were having over dinner, and, we have the Kai who is this she is the top tier religious leader for the Bajoran people, and for her to sit there and to be, so racist against Cisco, so casually racist. I found it very just disturbing because the amount of influence that she would have over such a particularly religious group like the Bajorans. Um, and it's like if it wasn't for the fact that Ben was the emissary and it was widely acknowledged and had been seen multiple times that he was indeed the emissary, and there was nothing she could do to call that title into question for him anymore, like if he just showed up and said it, he would have had a really rough time of things with someone of her influence. And I mean, obviously he did have a rough time, but we saw it in the first, few seasons when she, was initially getting established there for us. Um, but yeah, that's something that I feel like we do see when people of varying religious backgrounds are like, you're not of us, so because you're not of us, you're less than, you're less worthy, you're just less. And so we don't have to treat you a certain way because you're not us. And I always have found that very bothersome because then on the same token, those people will then go to church, and again, you will sit there and listen to your preacher, your minister, your whomever, and they sit there and say how Jesus told you to, care for the sick, care for the poor, care for the meek, care for the whatever. And then it's just like, okay, you're here on Sunday, you're listening, you're agreeing, you're clapping your hands, you're doing all the things, but didn't I just see you like Thursday walk past that homeless man and move your kids to the side and told them not to speak to him and all that stuff? Didn't I just see that? Yeah, that was you. That was you. So um to see it exemplified here on the show, it's another one of those just moments where I'm like, yeah, I feel like they really nailed that, So um Anything else on the subject that you want to talk about? I feel like there was more that we had said we were going to say, and maybe I'm forgetting. I should have wrote some things down.
The till death do us part stuff.
Yes, yes, there we go. So
And we
in
still haven't talked about Esri and Worf yet, but we'll get there.
we'll get there. We'll try to speed this up. But yes, the episode is called "Till Death Do Us Part." But if you notice at the wedding, they don't even say that. Admiral Ross, when he's performing the wedding ceremony, he says, "Until death separates you." That's what he says to both of them, and neither one of them respond with "Till death do us part" either. So even though it's the title of the episode, and it clearly informs us this is the wedding episode, at the actual wedding, the words are never spoken.
Right.
So I wonder why they made a departure from that. Because normally there is, if they're going to use a title like this, those words are in there somewhere,
Yeah.
and they didn't do that at all. You know,
Yeah,
so
it felt like they were trying to kind of like update the wedding vows in some way. Like maybe over time the wedding vows have kind of shifted a little bit, but you use the phrase that we know and love today, so why alter it? Yeah, it felt strange that they did that. It wasn't. I mean, I kind of noticed it in the back of my head during the episode, but until you mentioned it, it didn't like stick in my mind. Yeah.
now I've always found that phrase to be kind of weird anyway, "Till death do us part," because so many times people have said, like our love is forever, our love is eternal, our love, whatever. So it's like, why are you saying "till death do us part" if your love is eternal? Because doesn't that mean that even after death you're supposed to like be together, you know? And then that also brings up the whole issue of people being like, oh well, if my spouse, you know, dies, or if I die before my spouse, I want them to remarry. I want them to move on with their life. I want them to be happy and everything else. So okay, but then if you die, like let's say you die and then like 30 years later your spouse dies finally, and you've been wherever you are in the afterlife, and they show up, but they got married to someone else, because I mean they had 30 years, right? And they
Yep.
found someone else to be with. Are you like gonna be mad at them
So
because they've gotta, and then are they gonna be waiting on their next spouse to die to come in? So how does that work? So then the third one comes in, oh honey, it's been, I died 5 years after you died, and I've been waiting to see you. Like, I'm sorry, but she called dibs 30
yeah.
years ago, so I'm over here. You're alone
Well,
again.
the reason I'm laughing is because Jesus is also asked this question by the Sadducees. The Sadducees and the Pharisees were the two major parties at the time, and the Sadducees didn't believe in an afterlife. And part of their reason for there's no afterlife is because of this question. And they asked your version of the question, but they simplified it. They say there was a woman who was married, her husband dies, so she remarries, and then that husband dies. And by the time she finally dies, she's been married 7 times. So who in the afterlife is she married to? And they were like, well, obviously that doesn't make any sense. So there's no afterlife. And Jesus is like, bro, you don't understand. In the afterlife, people don't get married like they do on Earth. Like that's just like he doesn't explain how it's different. He just says that's not how it works. It's like the angels in heaven. The angels don't get married, so people won't get married. But like, yes, your love will still be there, but it's not going to be the same type of love. It'll like you're going to be a different being. Like the Bible literally says we're going to have new bodies. So like what it's going to look like is not going to be identical to how things look today. So it's funny that you had that question because I was like, there's literally like that very question in the Bible. Jesus got asked that question point blank at one point. So yeah, funny stuff.
And just to answer or to comment on what Vincent said here, no, it's not like the Titanic where Rose is a terrible person, and we're not going to talk about her beyond to say that Rose is a terrible person. So, yeah, that's it. Rose is a terrible person. So, but yeah, it's just something that I've always found so fascinating when people say that. And like you were just saying, in the Bible, it says that we would have, new bodies or whatever. But as you know, I've told this story a couple of times. I remember when I was about 9, 10 years old and in Sunday school, and this guy was giving us a Sunday school lesson about the afterlife and how things were going to be and everything else. And he told this thing about how once you pass on, that all of your connections will be erased. And so you will basically be existing in a communal space all for the glory of God. And so basically he was explaining that, like if your mom died before you, and then when you finally died and you went to heaven, you would not know that person as your mother. They were just another person in the communal space. And you may sort of kind of recognize that they had some kind of connection to your life, but nothing of any note or significance. So you wouldn't know her as your mother. That's not your father. That's not your brother. That's not your grandpa. They're just these other people who had some kind of extra whatever to your life. But other than that, you wouldn't recognize them. You wouldn't know them. And I remember not liking that at
Yeah.
all, and trying to get a greater explanation from my grandparents at the time. That's who I went to church with at the time, and they tried to explain it, and unfortunately, that didn't go over well. Which um, then led to that same guy trying to talk to me like every single week to like reiterate what he had tried to explain before. But I don't know if this has been mentioned on the show before. I'm a pretty stubborn person. So once I'm already kind of set on something, it's very hard to get me to, 180. And it's not to
The
say
harder
that
you
like,
push, the harder you like.
yeah, I mean, that's what it's like. I feel like I'm very open, but at the same time, it's like you got to approach me right, because if you do it wrong, then that's it.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, he told me something that I felt like was very wrong, and he didn't. I guess he didn't explain it well. I'm going to say he didn't explain it well, but because of that, I was already like, I don't want to listen to anything you say ever again. So now
Right.
him trying to explain other things to me, I was already no. Sorry, you lost me. You had your shot. It's gone.
Right.
We're done here.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the thing is, I've asked about that to other people who are a bit more religiously educated than I am, and no one that I've spoken to has ever mentioned that. They all have said that like don't know where that guy got that from, or he's taking something obscure out of context and tried to explain other things to me, but it didn't take. So I've been kind of relieved that no one else had that thought,
Yeah.
but also disturbed that one person did and was really trying to like,
Hone in on it somehow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and drill that
Yeah.
into me at
That's a
a, yeah,
bizarre take. I
yeah.
mean, that's like no. Yeah. No.
Like, why would you? And I remember distinctly, like my grandparents were talking to me about it and everything else, and I remember saying to them, "It's like I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to live all of my life and then die and go to heaven, and then at this point where I'm going to see my grandparents again, I wouldn't know who they are. Like, so after
Yeah.
all this time of living my life and thinking about them and missing them and everything else, I would finally get this opportunity to be reunited with them, and then there's nothing.
Yeah.
Would I would find that devastating. So
Yeah. The only thing
yeah.
I could think of is like, for example, like your mom, when you're a baby, your mom means so like the fact that your mom is your mom means so much more than when you're an adult. Not that your mom ceases to be your mom, but you're not dependent on her in the same way. And so the relationship might, as you get older, might change in the sense that you can now relate to your mom as an equal on some levels, but she's still your
But she's
mom.
still your
She doesn't
mom,
cease to
right?
be your mom.
She's
Yeah.
still right. I mean, and that's where I am in my relationship with my mother already. Like, yeah, she's um I'm older, I'm almost 40 years old, and it's just like our relationship is vastly different from when I was 20 and from when I was 10 and from when I was 5, vastly different relationship and all those things. But even with all of those changes, what doesn't change is the fact that she is still my mother, and she's going to
Right.
carry a certain significance and deference in my life that would never be equated to anyone else ever.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
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 it's just
your
like I
mom
don't
is
know
your mom
why.
forever. She'll never
Yeah,
see like even the whole marriage concept, like that person will still have been a spouse,
right.
but like heaven is supposed to be something more, and we don't know what that is yet. So
And
like
it
that
gets
relationship,
it's one of the commandments, right? Honor your mother and father. So I've done
oh,
this all of my
100%.
life, and then I
Yeah.
die, and God's like, yeah, that's more of a guideline than a rule. You just, eh, you can just drop that one over there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Heaven's
That
got
doesn't
different
make any
rules. Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Gosh. Ugh.
well, before we wrap this up, we do have to turn our attention to Ezri and Worf.
Woo.
Now on day 3 of their disappearance from Deep Space Nine. Keep in mind, Ezri left the station to go find Worf when he had been serving on the Rotarn with Martok, and the ship had come under fire, and he had gone into the escape shuttle thing, escape pod, and was lost in the Badlands. She found him on their way back. They were scooped up by some Breen. They've been traveling at high warp on a Breen ship where they have both been subjugated to various types of torture, which is what we see in this episode, them being tortured a lot. There was a mental probe that was used on both of them, which left them both very rattled, you know, until finally we have our big reveal here that Ezri seems to have buried feelings for Julian. Um,
And
once
Worf.
again, yeah, it's
Ugh.
it's we're back on this whole she's a Trill, but she's confused Trill, and all this stuff is swimming around in her, and she's got no separation, whatever. And then that is met with the rigidity of Klingon
Well, Worf
honor
says
codes.
Worf
Yeah.
said the one thing that we've talked about how they did Terry Farrell as Jadzia wrong. And they put the cherry on top in this episode, where early on in the episode, he says that Ezri is a lot like Jadzia. And I was like,
Where?
homeboy, like
Where?
they both have Trill features.
That's it.
That's it.
They got the spots. That's
Yeah.
it. They're
They
both Trill.
they were
That's
both
it.
in the Federation. That's
They
it.
they are no way the same. They are
Yeah.
no way the same.
Like he's sitting there, he's like trying to comfort her, and I don't know, it's because they had this weird conversation about dreams, like do dreams mean anything? And he's like, no, of course not. She's like, well, I'm a counselor, and they can mean all kinds of things,
Oh,
like the womb.
she said that
She goes full on
she said
Freudian on him.
yeah, she when she said, "Well, I'm a counselor," the first thing that popped in my mind was, "Yeah, bad one." And I just like it was I couldn't help it. It just like
I know.
it came out hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bad one. And
Yeah.
then yeah, she begins to start breaking down this dream with the most juvenile nonsense. Well, the cave could be the womb, and I'm fighting
Repressing memories, but I've been
late.
born 9 times. Oh, shut up already.
You're trying, yeah,
You remember
right.
being born 9 times? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's unique as a counselor that a Trill wouldn't be able to do a better introspective analysis considering the lifetimes of experience she'd be able to draw upon after being joined. Now,
Right.
granted, that's always the fatal flaw of this character. She did not have the training of the initiate program of all that stuff that Jadzia went through to prepare her for the joining and for um, the experiences that she was suddenly going to gain 100% access to.
For
So it's
crying out
always going to
loud.
throw her off. But that was the biggest disservice they did to Esri was not making her a prepared joined Trill.
Well, I mean, they could have, instead of having her go back to her family and have that weird episode with her family, they could have had her go to the institute or whatever the
Right.
Trill
Get a
call it.
crash course. You're already joined.
Yeah.
They can't take the symbiont from you because it'll kill you. They all know that. But they
Right.
can at least give you some meditative techniques, take you
And
through
we
your own
can
personal
give
Jantara.
Jadzia a
Yeah.
legitimate send
Send
off.
off. But they didn't want to pay Jadzia any residuals. They were all about not using anything Terry Farrell.
Which is funny because last episode they did have some quotes from her. They had Terry Farrell's voiceover
Yeah.
from previous episodes.
But that was it. After that, they're just like, yeah, we don't want to pay her for anything. We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very cruel what they did, and it's one of those things that is always going to stand out when you watch this show, especially all these years later. And now that like binge watching is a thing, and people can go back and watch all the way through it, then suddenly her absence is so noticeable. And when you have a character like Esri who just frankly pales in comparison. It makes it even worse. And I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. Esri would have worked on almost any other show. She should not have been the follow-up here.
Right.
If they wanted to kill Jadzia, but then still have Dax somewhere else, they could have killed Jadzia and then put Esri on Voyager and work through that in some kind of manner. But no, they wanted to really be 100% done with Terry Farrell, and they wanted it to be instant, and
Right.
that really hurt them in their storytelling. And I
Right.
know that it wasn't the showrunners and the writers' choices to do it. I know that all
Right.
that decision came from higher up, and they were trying to do the best they could with what they were now contractually obligated to work with. I get it, but man, I wonder for them. Like, I wonder if any writers that are still out there today that ever go back and look at it and you know just
How
get
did they
pissed,
respond?
right? Like they're just like there was so much we wanted to do here and we couldn't
Right.
because of Berman.
Well, so what's really interesting about this whole sequence is the reason it's frustrating is because we seem to get this. They want they, they present Esri in particular as wanting to have it both ways. Is she Jadzia with the memories of Jadzia and she wants to have the relationship with Worf, or is
Yeah,
she Esri and she's a different person? Now, okay, if the point is that she, Esri, is having trouble working out these memories and these thoughts, then let's have that plot line and get it done. That's what I'm
and
getting at.
solve it right.
Let's solve that plot line because I'm tired of this back and forth. Now, I did like the moment. I think she was, coming back. The reason the dream sequence was so interesting is because obviously Cisco just had a vision, so it's not a dream. It was a real thing. Uh, Esri might say dreams have meaning, but we know for the most part dreams are usually random and they don't have much meaning other than just what you want to interpret them as for yourself. But when they were drugged by the Breen, they were experiencing memories. When Worf comes back, he is experiencing memories. He's saying Alexander. He's
He
thinking about
screams about
Jadzia.
dishonoring Jadzia's memory. Yes,
Right. So when she comes back, it's the same thing. And the one thing she says is, "I'm your wife. I was your wife, but you won't even talk to me." And in that moment, I felt sympathy. I was like, "Yes, in a sense, she is his wife." And the fact that he hasn't talked to her would be brutal. But we've heard Worf also say, "I know that you, as a Trill, are not supposed to go have relationships with past lovers, so I'm trying to honor you by not
and
doing
then
that."
and then she turns around and she's all like, screw all that. I want you to."
Yes. And
Over and over again, like she throws it in his face that
right.
he won't talk to her, that he won't engage with her, that he's ignoring her, he's been avoiding her, he's been doing all this thing. She throws it into his face multiple times, and then
Yes.
when he finally does acknowledge and they share a moment, she ends up sleeping with him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, so wait a minute. Like you said, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You don't get to manipulate the guy into making him think that you're into him, and then you pull back and you're just, well, that wasn't really me. I'm not Jadzia. Okay, well then
Yes.
you don't get Jadzia treatment and respect if
Right.
you're not willing to do the rest of the thing here. You want
Right.
him to still treat you with the same kind of courtesy and deference and respect that he was giving the wife he clearly still loves and misses. Meanwhile, you also get to gallivant around and do whatever you want and be cute little Esri who's got a
Right.
crush on the doctor,
Right.
which by the way is also wrong. Um, age difference. You're like supposed to be what, 26, I think, at the oldest. Julian is almost 40. Stop it. All
Is he
right.
almost 40? I thought he was like early 30s. Well, I mean, maybe we
No,
started early
when
30s.
when we started the show, he was 29. No, I think he was 28 because we watched him turn 30 in like season 2 or 3. He has his
Okay.
30th birthday, and so yeah, he's nearly 40.
Well,
Let the guy.
I wouldn't consider him like ridiculously outside her age range. I mean, he's definitely older. The bigger problem for him is that he was always creepy with Jadzia. He was
Yeah,
always hitting on her and pining for her, and she
and
I
so
mean,
yeah,
she didn't like lead him along ever. She was always like,
Yeah,
"You're a
Jadzia,
coworker,
right.
you're a
Jadzia might have,
colleague."
yeah,
She might have
that would
enjoyed
be
the
dubious to say that she flirted with him back. She might have enjoyed his attention a little bit,
right
but to think that she was like into him, I don't think they ever really showed that she was as into him as he was her.
into her. Yeah, so that
Right.
like episode, I think Esri's early on, she was like, "Oh yeah, she was like this far away from finally giving into you." Like, what? That was
So
always
no,
off
she
the
wasn't.
table. No, she
Right.
wasn't.
No, she wasn't. Why would you say that?
Yeah,
Why would you that's just another way to make now you've made the doctor feel awkward and bad as well.
right.
That
So
if
like,
not for Worf, he would have got her. Like why are you saying those things?
right. So again, this whole thing is like the Esri character. The thing I'm trying to balance is if you want characters to have interesting stories and interesting personal conflicts, then you got to create drama. And being a Trill, that's an alien creature, it's an alien species, and so the personal drama can be unique to this storyline, to this character, to this story. But it's as if they haven't given themselves the time and space to let Esri work out these problems. I mean, if the show, let me put it this way, if the show was going to end on season 10, not season 7, maybe this is a storyline that we would need to get to, say, season 8. In season 8, Esri finally has to deal with her romantic triangles. But because we know the show ends here in just a few more episodes, I'm bored with this. I'm done. Like, figure out what you want, girl. I mean, again, maybe they'll make it interesting as we go to the finale. Obviously, she's stuck with Worf. What does that mean? That she's now a captive with Worf? Is
Yeah.
she gonna? Are they gonna figure out their relationship?
Well,
Hey,
she's already,
screw.
I mean, she's already kind of ended that because, she let the whole thing slip about her feelings about Julian, which Worf is now fully aware of, and he's the type that's it
Takes
for him.
that very
Yeah,
personal.
he
Yeah,
takes he takes those things very seriously, and if she isn't going to commit to him, he is not going to pursue this at
right.
all
Because he was
anymore.
ready to be like, all right, fine, Esri, you're Jadzia 2.0. You're enough like her that I'll make it happen.
Well, and he said that
I
I thought that I had lost Jadzia forever.
right.
But now I know that you and I will have many years together.
Yes,
And that's
he.
when she was like, yeah, and then, of course, they got the clever interruption of the brain coming
Right.
in to torture them some more. And then she's all, but I love you, Julian.
Yeah, inner like sleep slash coma slash drug induced
She says
whatever.
the thing that gets her off the hook with Worf. Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, and
Not
like
really her fault that she revealed her innermost thoughts and feelings. She should have been the grown up adult counselor
yeah,
that she's supposed to be. And rather than hiding feelings, she tells the man, hey, look, be honest. That
right.
was a one time, whatever. But yeah,
Well, the one problem I also have with that little admission, "Oh, I love you, Bashir," if she is having memories, like she's literally having memories. She's saying to the ghost of the one murderous, previous host, like, "I'm not a murderer like
yeah,
you."
if you notice, all the
Um,
things that she said were from previous episodes.
yeah,
Like she
to
was in
Garrick, "I'll help you, Garrick,"
I'll
and
help
stuff
you,
like that.
Garrick. She thing about her brother. I'm not just saying this because I'm your sister. You're really talented,
Yes,
whatever. Then the whole thing about I'm not
yes.
like you, Duran. The Jadzia thing. I was your wife, and you don't even talk to me. All these things were lines from previous episodes.
Well, I don't.
So
Did she say I was your wife, but you don't talk to me? Is that a line from a previous
yeah,
episode?
because that was from when she first came back, and he was avoiding her again, and they were like in the corridor, and she said, "I." That's what she said. I was your wife. You don't even talk to me. And he
Oh,
was
okay,
like, "But you're," and he told her, "You're not my wife, and don't talk to me about her ever again." And
okay,
then that's the episode where at the end he kind of like grudgingly accepts that she's gonna stay on the station because she
right.
didn't do the mature thing and leave.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Take the other Trill's knowledge on the situation and
uh,
move on with your life. Yeah.
the little
Uh,
one doesn't get the hint.
yeah,
Just get out of here.
yeah. What was that from? The little one doesn't get the hint.
Um, Austin Powers,
Okay.
the spy who
Oh,
shagged me with Mini Me.
okay.
When he
Okay.
was
Yeah.
saying he was telling everybody to stay except for he wanted everybody to leave except for you, and you, and then the only person he doesn't point to is Mini Me, and he's like, the little one doesn't get the hint.
Yeah. Great. Um, but yeah. Anyway, I'm glad you say that about that line. I was your wife, but you won't talk to me because in the moment watching this episode, I thought that was the first time she was saying it. So I felt like that was like a revelation that she's finally her subconscious was finally saying something to Worf, and therefore when she says something about Bashir, it was also a subconscious thing. But because of what you just said, that reveals that every one of those lines has been said. So what does that mean about "I love you, Bashir" or "I love you, Julian"? She said it, at least in her private
Esri,
quarters.
right, but also it could be the first time that it's something that she's finally doing something for herself a bit. This
Well,
is
but my point though
Esri.
is that she has said it. Like it's not my initial take on the "I was your wife, but you won't talk to me" and the "I love you, Bashir" or "I love you, Julian" was that those were two subconscious revelations
Mhm.
simultaneously being revealed to Worf, and that he only responds to the second one. Nope. If what you said is correct, that all of those lines have been said before previously, then that
Mhm.
also means "I love you, Julian" has been said, and she's either said it privately or to him. Actually, I don't think she's actually said it to him, at least not yet. But that also means that Worf is correct to be angry on some level because she is interested in Bashir. Now, again, that's where I get frustrated with the whole Worf always takes things really personally and gets angry easily, and then he gets like the show like has to like reprimand him for his being angry, as opposed to him being rightfully angry about something.
Well, and while I do agree there are some times where Worf is maybe overacting a little bit, I also feel like I got to defend the guy in the recognition of he's from a completely different culture. They have a completely different set of cultural norms, of honor precepts and things like that that they go through for things. And when
Yeah,
you decide to be friends with the Klingon or in a relationship with the Klingon, certainly there are certain things that you're going to have to accept that you're going to have to put up with.
right.
And I don't like the fact that so many times, especially when it's something that is of a particular cultural significance to Worf, we're told to dismiss it or we're told that he's overreacting.
Yeah.
Klingons take mating rituals very seriously. We've
Yes.
seen that with Worf since day one. The
Yep.
whole thing with him and Kalar and all the rest of that, and how he was so upset that she wouldn't, take the oath way back when, and then they had the kid before she took the oath, and all of that, and then what the oath allowed him to do when she was murdered, and so forth. Obviously, that's all taken very seriously. And so for Esri to come in after having lived Jadzia's life, having Jadzia's experiences, knowing how important all of that stuff is to Worf, for her to just casually be like, nah, not gonna do it, is bothersome. It's
Yeah.
disrespectful to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all. And she has shown nothing but blatant disrespect for Klingon culture and stuff
Yeah.
from the get-go. From
Right.
like the moment she's been introduced as a character. It's like they were saying, as our way of making her as different from Jadzia as possible, the reverence and respect that Jadzia had for Klingons, we're going to make this character the exact opposite. And it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I don't take her disrespect as being intentional. I don't maybe not saying I don't think you're saying this, but it's casual. She doesn't know anything about Klingons, and so she's casually just running over Worf's feelings about stuff. I mean, at least Jadzia. I mean, I was kind of annoyed by Jadzia intentionally poking at Worf at times. I felt like she was
Yeah, but
doing
she
it too
poked at
much. But
him. I mean, like she poked fun at him, but she didn't cross a line. Like she kind of got him to lighten up a little bit.
well,
We had
she
seen
knew
Klingons.
what she was doing at the very
Yeah,
least.
yeah, I will agree.
Esri
Yeah, she knew what she
Esri
was doing.
Esri
Yeah.
doesn't know what she's doing, and
But
the fact that
that's
she's a
what makes it
counselor.
worse.
Yes,
Exactly. But not
like
just because she's a counselor, but also because she is a joined Trill. She has Jadzia's memories. So
all
for
nine
her,
lives worth of
right, and
memories.
yeah, she's got Curzon too. Good Lord, Curzon. She's got Jadzia and Curzon, two individuals who made their bones by being friends with Klingons, and
Right.
for her to just be like, "Oh, God, makes me sick," and I hate Raktajino, and Worf is such a overbearing brute, and I don't understand what his problem is. What?
Yeah.
What? What
Yeah.
do you do? What is your purpose?
What do
You're a
you do
counselor
here?
and you can't figure. Yeah, what are you? Like, go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to figure out more about what happens with them because now they're on the. Well, it was the whole time. It seemed like the ship that they kept referring to as the Breen ship
Mhm.
also looked. It seemed like it was the identical ship that the Dominion was using. Like they didn't do a good job of like differentiating the
Well,
two ships.
so really, all we see of the Breen ship is the outside and the holding cell that they're
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Later on, when we see them out, when we see them out and Damar and Wayoon show up, they've beamed onto a Dominion ship.
Right.
So that's why things look like they look different and look like a Dominion ship because they it is a Dominion ship.
No, I
So yeah,
mean
we
like
think it's
all the external shots of the Breen ship. If they ever did an external shot of the Dominion ship, because at one point Wayun is like, "We're going somewhere, but we're not there yet." It felt like I mean, let me put it this way: I knew that they were going to be meeting up with the Dominion the whole time because the ships looked identical. Like I couldn't tell a difference, so it felt like, well, that's what's
oh,
happening. Is there something
you
about?
should go back and watch that because they clearly use different ship models and
Okay, yeah,
the
I mean,
interiors that we see, like the interiors of the Dominion ship, are like subdued browns and
well,
purples
so
and
I'm talking
stuff.
about the external, but I also want to say the Breen ship, the external, like it's got sharp edges and like
Yeah, it's like
scythe
kind
looking
of a
wing.
yeah, it's kind of like a
It looks
curved blade.
badass.
It's got that one little dippy blade part that was hanging off of it. I thought the same thing when I saw. It. I was like, who designed that ship? It looks like it's designed to cut through a planet. Like
Yeah,
who does that?
you touch it and you die. Like
Yeah, right. Like it doesn't so much fly through space as it's just cutting a seam on it because it looks like it was ready to just rip through some stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, it
So I want to
was
see those ships
interesting.
in action. I hope we see some of that. Actually, I have to say, I'm curious how the Breen are going to be introduced to the Dominion alliance. Are they going to be just suppliers? Like, hey, we'll join you, but we don't want to be your frontline forces. We'll help supply you on the back end because we know you guys are having some trouble. But like, you guys are still the frontline fighters, or are they willing to join the front line of the fight?
Uh,
Are we going to see some Federation Breen clashes? So I'm curious if that'll show up at all.
well, this would be the first time that we've seen the Breen in any kind of major way. We'd seen them a couple of times in earlier episodes of Deep Space Nine, but we never
Yep.
really saw them doing anything. We never
Yeah.
saw them as a government body or anything like that. So
They were introduced, at least to me, in the episode where Gul Dukat's daughter was introduced when
yeah,
they had crash
so that
landed
was
and
like what, season 3, season 4.
something like that. Yeah,
So, I mean, it's been a while. I mean, they were introduced a long time ago. We've
it's been
heard
three.
about them. TNG talked about the Breen a couple of times. We never saw the Breen on Next Gen. So,
And I really want to see what's underneath those helmets because, again, apparently
well,
Julian's under there, according to Esri.
well, unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait until you watch
Strange New
Star
World
Trek Discovery,
Discovery.
actually,
Yeah.
and after they jump into the
You-
32nd century, because
Yeah.
that's when the Breens show up again, and
Finally take off their.
we get a reveal as to what they are.
Right.
So it's interesting. I will say that I think it's a very interesting take on a old enemy. So
Oh. Okay.
well, I think we've pretty much covered everything there is to cover uh, about this episode. Can't think of anything else here other than again, this is part of the story arc, the serialized story arc that's going to finish out um, the season and the series for us. So lots to look forward to. What are Adami Win and Anton or Joel, whatever his name is, Ducat, what are they going to get up to going forward? Now that Cisco and
That's going to be
Cassidy are
2 episodes
married,
because
yeah.
we're going to do the Expanse next time. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So we got to so we get through all those things, and then of course we have our After Dark special of the final book of the Expanse also coming up. Um, if you've been following along with us at all, I would love for people to like tell us what they thought, and we can discuss that as well. when we are going over it ourselves here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Oh, and Strange New Worlds, the new season, it starts this week because today is the 13th, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's supposed to be the 17th, Thursday. So take a look and
And that's season 3, right?
season 3. That is correct. And I will tell you, I think that they've done. I went back and watched a couple episodes of season 2, and I think they've done a great job of building the suspense for what is to come in season 3. So I'm really looking forward to that. Our episodes will be available once again on the podcasting platforms. I'm going to go through all that tomorrow. I just got the notification looking at it right now that all things on our hosting site have finally been fixed and otherwise resolved. So I'm going to go back on there tomorrow and start
Fantastic.
trying to get things re-released. I know we've got a backlog of episodes that you've only had access to via our YouTube channel. So now, hopefully by the end of the week, you'll at least have 2, maybe 3 new episodes so I can get them all scheduled. Maybe 3 episodes you can listen to whenever you're doing your car rides or whatever it is you do when you access our shows. Um, I don't need to know unless it's cool. Like, don't tell me anything awful. I don't want to hear that you listen to us in the bathroom or something like that. Like, just keep that to yourself. Um,
You do know that people are not going to do that just to say that they did
I mean, just no. Don't tell me. All right.
it.
Don't. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Never mind. You know what? No, no. I don't want to know at all. Any of them. I don't care if you listen to it in your car or not. You don't have to tell me that. Like, I don't want to know.
You're
I
back
shouldn't have
checking
opened that
hard
up. I'm
now. Yeah.
hardcore. You know what? No one knows. There. As far as I'm concerned, you just listen to it at your computer. There. That's it. That's
There
all
you
I'll
go.
accept.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, that will do it for us on this longer episode of our show. Hope you all have enjoyed that, of course, and we will see you back here next week. So until then, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.